Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a fascinating look into, well, one of the most successful transformation stories in modern retail, E.L.F. Cosmetics.
It's a massive story.
Yeah,
And our mission today is really to analyze how a company that built its name on items priced between, what, $1 and $5?
just $1 to $5.
How they didn't just survive the beauty wars, but scaled into what is now genuinely being called a multi-billion-dollar beauty platform.
It's a paradox, isn't it? Achieving this sort of prestige through radical affordability.
Totally. That structural advantage, the low price, is the key starting point.
And we've got sources covering their entire journey. We're talking the gritty Oakland founding, the strategic, almost military-like shift into mass retail, that undeniable culture-defining moment with the hashtag Eyes Lips Face TikTok campaign, their staggering latest financials, and this is the big one, the high-stakes acquisitions.
Right, the move into skincare with Naturium and that massive reported deal for Rhode.
Ex-
When you look at the evidence stack, the initial thesis, it crystallizes very quickly. The E.L.F. story is a masterclass in combining a structural pricing advantage
That hyper-affordability.
with a complete and total mastery of cultural momentum. They made the product accessible, and then they engineered the brand environment to make that accessible product cool.
So let's unpack this from the very beginning. You have to understand where they came from. So take us back to 2004, Oakland, California.
Founded by Joseph Chama and Scott Vincent Borba. And the name itself is, well, it's a blueprint for simplicity. Eyes.lips.face.
E.L.F.
And that simplicity, it just extended right into their initial strategy. They launched with these extremely low price points, often $1, maybe $5, specifically to democratize cosmetics.
That phrase, democratize cosmetics, it sounds like corporate jargon, but what did it mean in practice?
In practice, it was revolutionary.
Because before this, if you wanted to experiment with makeup, the entry cost could be really high, right?
Precisely. They lowered the barrier to entry so drastically that anyone could afford to try them. This wasn't just discounting old stock. This was a foundational volume strategy.
It created an accessible on-ramp for customers who might be intimidated by or just couldn't afford the $20 plus prices of other lines.
Exactly. They used price friction to their advantage.
And it worked because they scaled their portfolio so quickly. They weren't just selling 5 shades of lipstick, they moved into skincare tools.
Yeah, they grew their lineup, what they call SKUs to over 300 different products, pretty fast.
That breadth was essential.
It gave the volume play somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But the next masterstroke was distribution. They started direct-to-consumer, e-commerce, which is agile.
Sure.
But then they moved aggressively into mass retail drugstores, Walmarts, the big box stores.
Which puts them right where the customer already is, shopping for necessities. It makes a $5 item an impulse buy, something you just throw in your cart.
Exactly. They turned a cosmetics purchase into a low-stakes decision you can make while buying groceries. Now, the big question is, if the price is so low, why did people come back?
Right, because low price only gets you the first trial. Retention, that relies on something else entirely.
And that's the sweet spot E.L.F. discovered. It was the combination of the low price plus consistently respectable formulas.
So the genius wasn't just the cheap price tag?
No, it was that the $3 primer was actually good. They captured trial through that aggressive pricing, and then they converted it into repeat business because they invested in these hero SKUs products that truly performed.
And this brings us right into their brand DNA. Because they layered ethics on top of that affordability, which made their value proposition even stickier.
It's a huge differentiator.
They position themselves as affordable, yes, but also fundamentally vegan and cruelty-free.
And that positioning as, PETA and Leaping Bunny friendly, it instantly spoke to Gen Z consumers.
People who really care about ethical sourcing.
Especially in the beauty space. They weren't just selling cheap makeup. They were selling guilt-free, ethical, cheap makeup. It added depth.
But, and we have to stress this again, that entire ethical veneer, it just collapses if the product doesn't deliver.
Right.
So let's name some of these hero products that were so successful they actually started to disrupt the prestige market.
Well, we have to highlight the dupe strategy. The Poreless Putty Primer is a textbook case.
Why that one specifically?
The reason that product went absolutely viral wasn't just its price, which was, $8 or so. It was widely seen as a high-performance dupe for the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer.
Which retailed for around $50 or $60.
Exactly. That direct comparison is the real insight. E.L.F. was providing luxury performance at a drugstore price.
So they weren't just competing against CoverGirl, they were actively challenging the prestige brands on functionality.
Absolutely. And other products like the Camo Concealer, the Power Grip Primer, Halo Glow,
Mhm.
they all followed that same playbook. They were effective enough to generate word of mouth that turned into digital buzz.
And to fuel that buzz, they adopted a truly cultural voice. They weren't using dry, traditional advertising.
No, you saw bold, creative, extremely meme-aware copy and a focus on influencers that went way beyond just the top-tier celebrities.
They understood that a micro-influencer could have more trust than a billboard ad.
And they weren't afraid of being provocative if it meant generating conversation. They gave the brand personality.
Which brings us to the section that fundamentally changed their trajectory, mastering social native virality. We have to talk about the TikTok moment.
Oh, yeah.
The 2019-2020 hashtag #ISlipSpace campaign is now taught in business schools.
It should be. It is the blueprint for success on that platform. And
Huh.
crucially, this wasn't an ad they filmed for TV and then just, repurposed for TikTok.
It was engineered for TikTok.
Exactly, for its participatory culture.
So lay out the playbook for us. What were the specific mechanics they got so right?
It was brilliant in its simplicity. First, they invested in a branded audio asset, a short, incredibly catchy song.
Created with a real record label, Republic Records.
Right. Second, the visual creative itself was designed to be instantly recognizable, easy to replicate, and built around a natural transition. Eyes, then lips, then face.
So the visual and the audio were perfectly matched for the platform's core function, the remix.
The algorithm was built to reward content that inspired user creation, and they leaned right into that. The campaign wasn't asking you to buy a product, it was asking you to participate.
The level of cultural saturation was insane. You couldn't scroll TikTok for 2 weeks without seeing it.
And the result wasn't just soft brand awareness. The quantifiable impact was astronomical.
Billions of views.
Billions of views and millions of user-generated videos. That activity generated massive earned media. For anyone unfamiliar, earned media means free press value generated by users, not by the company seeing for ads.
And that drove huge web traffic.
Massive growth in their core products. They successfully turned a corporate jingle into a social ritual.
So the big lesson for every entrepreneur, every brand looking at this case study, you can't just broadcast anymore.
The key takeaway is, design social native assets that invite remixing and co-creation. The algorithm rewards participation. E.L.F. understood that their audience wanted to be a part of the story.
Let's pivot to the sheer scale of this success, because that virality, combined with the product strategy, gave them the foundation to evolve into something much bigger.
Much bigger.
They IPO'd in 2016, and they have shown consistent growth that has made them the fastest-growing mass beauty brand globally.
The growth is staggering. To give you the true scale, as of fiscal 2025, E.L.F.'s net sales were approximately $1.31 billion.
$1.31 billion.
Massive. This confirms they successfully converted those viral moments into repeatable, immense revenue streams. The product performance matched the hype.
And that kind of revenue, that allows them to make a huge strategic pivot. They're transitioning from being a single mass value brand into what we are now calling a multi-brand beauty platform.
That's the critical shift. The focus is less on just organic growth within the hyper-saturated mass makeup space.
And more on what?
More on using strategic acquisitions, M&A, to move upmarket and diversify their offering, broadening their whole portfolio.
And we have some blockbuster examples of this playing out very recently. So what are the key acquisitions that highlight this change?
The first major move was the 2023 acquisition of Naturium. That immediately established them as a serious player in the high-growth skincare category.
Right.
Then, in 2025, you have the widely reported acquisition of Rhode, Hailey Bieber's brand, for a deal reportedly around $1 billion.
Okay, wait a second. This is where I have to stop you. The entire genesis of E.L.F. was democratizing cosmetics, $1 to $5 items. Now they've spent $1 billion to buy a prestige, celebrity-driven brand like Rhode. Doesn't that fundamentally betray the original DNA?
That is the essential conflict in their current strategy. It's why analysts are watching them so closely.
How do you market a $5 concealer and a $40 serum under the same roof?
Well, the strategic implication is that they are expanding their customer funnel dramatically. They're segmenting the market. The E.L.F. brand itself remains the affordable mass volume driver, the entry point.
And the acquisitions?
The acquisitions Naturium, Rhode, E.L.F, and Rec, Those are margin and prestige drivers. They gain immediate access to premium, higher-margin skincare buyers. They acquire celebrity reach that would take years to build organically.
So they're capturing adjacent, higher-value categories to ensure sustained growth.
Exactly. They are betting that the modern consumer understands that a parent company can own diverse brands, even if the brands themselves serve different people.
So the goal isn't brand uniformity, it's maximum market coverage.
It's an ecosystem. They're using their expertise in digital marketing and supply chain to fuel multiple brands that operate in different price tiers.
Now, you can't achieve this level of success and scale without attracting some friction, some risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's look at the risk tolerance we've seen, particularly in their PR.
Their cultural voice is intentionally bold, which means they court controversy. We saw this with their 2024 campaign, So Many Dicks, which was designed to call out boardroom gender imbalance.
That one definitely generated coverage.
It polarized opinions, for sure.
Mm.
But they are willing to take strong editorial positions, risking backlash in exchange for earned media and cultural relevance.
They'd rather be talked about, even if some of it's negative.
Precisely. On another front, there's been scrutiny regarding sustainability, which is a classic tension for high-volume players.
They push initiatives like Project Unicorn packaging reductions and are cruelty-free, which sounds great. But critics argue that the fundamental low-price, high-volume model, it just inherently creates a huge environmental footprint.
And that is the honest tension point. While they promote commitments to ethics, the sheer volume of production required to maintain those prices, it inherently creates massive volumes of packaging and waste.
How do they manage that?
They have to constantly manage that reputational risk. So far, their strategy has been to manage it through transparent, small-scale initiatives and rapid, bold messaging to avoid long-term damage.
So pulling all these threads together, the pricing, the ethics, the virality, the M&A, what's the final playbook summary that other brands should be studying?
I'd say there are 3 non-negotiables in the E.L.F. playbook. First, use price to radically lower adoption friction. But you must invest in hero SKUs that perform like their higher-priced peers.
Performance is the glue. What's number 2?
Second, lean into specific ethics that truly matter to your audience, like being cruelty-free. This gives the brand a moral spine that goes beyond just a commodity price.
And third?
And third, once you've dominated your core space, scale via smart M&A to buy into adjacent higher-margin audiences. Be willing to transition from a brand to a platform.
This entire deep dive, it just shows a phenomenal mastery of both product and platform engagement. They didn't just sell cheap makeup, they sold participation.
They engineered an entire consumer journey, starting at $1 and ending with billion-dollar acquisitions.
And that leaves us with our final thought for you to chew on. If E.L.F's future success relies on owning both the mass market volume play, that original value proposition, and these new prestige celebrity brands like Rhode, how long can they manage that inherent tension? Specifically, how long until consumers start asking whether their original mission of democratizing cosmetics is simply an old marketing story for a much larger, more expensive empire? That's your deep dive homework. We'll see you next time.